Everybody, welcome back to Spitballin' Cards. We've got a skeleton crew today. After the National, Scott is still recovering, and Ty is on assignment somewhere. But you've got me, Jeff, you got Filmington, and Chris, two people that were at the National, and they're going to give us their full report. So thanks for joining us. How was the National? Any first reactions, Chris, to the first National card show that you've been to?
Jeff, when the Burbank show, now the West Coast card show, moved to Anaheim, and you and I went there for the first time, I thought that was the biggest card show that could possibly exist. Mm-hmm. We walked all around, for like a day, and I don't think we saw everything. Like, we went back the second day, and there was, new stuff, and we were like, oh my God, this is incredible. The National is like at least 3 times the size of Burbank. We walked around all day the first day, probably saw 50%, and then even realized on day 2 there was a whole separate room that we never even set foot in. It was almost mind-numbing. Like, and amazingly, almost no Pokemon. Phil said a little bit more Pokemon this year than last year, but still, like, I don't know, 5% Pokemon maybe? It was all baseball cards. It was spectacular.
Wow, 3 times the size of the Burbank show. I don't know if my feet would survive getting through there. Phil, how did it compare to last year's?
So this is my 6th National. I think I went to the last 6. So starting in 2019 and then 2020, they didn't have it. 4th time in Chicago. And I would say that there's less to complain about this time with regards to the quote unquote little things. Now, if you need to commute in and drive in every day to the show, if you're not within walking distance, then maybe maybe there's some gripes there. But what do you expect? It's traffic, and last year was an absolute nightmare. So This year, though, Wi-Fi went pretty well. For the first few hours on the show floor, I wasn't connected to the Wi-Fi, and then I was having a few issues here and there, so I decided to connect. So that went well. Air conditioner worked well. I think the disgust with some of the more industry type vendors there, like the Whatnots and some of those other loud breakers, I think we've all accepted that that's the norm. So that's less bothersome to people now versus what's with all those people screaming now? We're like, yeah, we're gonna hear some screaming. We just know how to filter out the screaming. I think there are certain parts of the floor that usually have the lights off. There's an issue with lighting, but I didn't notice that this time. And for those in the comments that were there, so Chris is shaking his head, let us know if there were issues there. It was not going to be a pain if you're going through dollar boxes and you can't see condition. Condition's going to be hard enough to see anyways. The pricing, as usual, as expected, people like me or any of you guys, if you went there and you didn't buy anything in an entire day, don't feel bad because there's only so many deals. And for me, because I showed up on Friday and actually a little bit after noon, all of the good stuff would have been gone anyways. And then it's just a matter of what can I find that was recently traded or bought by these vendors that they didn't price out or they don't have a good price for. So you're just relying on that and you don't really know which cars to look for. But often what I do is I just scan at a dealer's showcase and I'm just okay, 40% above market, 50% above market, 40% above, 60% above. Then I kind of just move on. I probably skipped an entire room without knowing it because I only got, this is from the last video I talked about how I'd only be going for one day. I was only on the show floor for about 5 hours. And because of that, we had to skip some things. And of course I was hanging out with Chris and Scott for a little bit. So that was a lot of fun. Ran into Neo, Cars and Comics, and a bunch of other people. Yeah, probably a lot of stuff I missed out on. I am shocked that I walked away with buying a card. I wasn't able to go to any trade nights because by the time I got in, it was 1:40 in the morning. My initial flight got canceled. I had one direct flight left that was going from the greater New England area to Chicago, either Midway or O'Hare. Took that flight, and then that flight was delayed 3 hours itself too. So had to drive through really horrible weather to the airport. Visibility was terrible. We're talking in the fast lane, which in Massachusetts usually means between 70 to 80 miles an hour, usually on the higher side of things. If visibility is good, the guy was going 40 and I couldn't I couldn't move over to pass him on the right, which is illegal, by the way, so don't do that. Couldn't do it because I couldn't see behind me if cars were coming. It was just like a blur of just light. So that was annoying. But I had fun at the show. And was it different than last year? Yeah, it was better than last year. Unfortunately, we're going to be going to Detroit in 2028. I don't know how people feel about that. All sorts of comments I've dealt with over the last 5 or 6 years, having a channel, a YouTube channel, about like, make sure you stay safe in Chicago, bring your gun. Well, now there might be some merit to the whole gun thing, but it can't be worse than Atlantic City. I don't think that's possible. Just there's got to be a spot in Detroit, which is where this is, over by the water, where there's a bunch of hotels, that has to be safer than Atlantic City. But I don't know the area well enough, so we'll see.
Yeah, I've never been to Detroit, but I have been to Atlantic City, and Phil, it has to be safer than Atlantic City. Like if you leave a casino and you don't go out to the boardwalk, it's like 50-50 if you can get across the street without getting mugged. Like, and your odds aren't great in Atlantic City. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Detroit's a little more central for a lot of people than Atlantic City. So I think that's why it may have gotten the nod over Atlanta, which sounds like it would have been nice, although it might be hot at that time of year. We had unseasonably pleasant weather in Chicago for you guys. So the air conditioning didn't get its real test like it would have in a normal Chicago summer.
Yeah, minimizing sweating is probably a good idea. You might look at Phil and say, well, that gentleman is chiseled, but he is not the majority of the physiques that you run into at these shows. So, adding a layer of sweat to it could be a pretty uncomfortable experience for all of us.
Okay, speaking of physiques, for those of you guys that see Chris through the camera, and I'll mention it right here, right now, he has a lot of spare time for whatever reason based on his lifestyle and stuff. We won't get into that. But he talks about how he goes to the gym, sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 2 hours. And I always thought, like, what the heck is that guy doing at the gym? He looks like a lanky POS through the screen. And then I see him in person. And then I will say that, very as humble as I possibly can say, pretty sure Chris could snap me like a pencil if he wanted to. So,
that's a legit compliment on the Spitballin' channel. That might be a first after like 2 years of this channel. That might be the first like heartfelt, sincere compliment between members.
Yeah. You never know if you're going to get roasted by Phil or maybe complimented. That's pretty.
I didn't know where he was going. I really didn't. That could have gone either way.
When we first saw each other in person, obviously this was the first time. Chris said he was hanging out over by Starbucks. So I'm like looking around. I'm trying to like find out where he is before he can find out where I am. And then we see each other and it's just like, because we both knew that we were both about 6'1", 195, but that can come in many different shapes. So I think we just stared for an extra long time period at each other.
For sure. I appreciate you giving me an extra inch right there. Phil, I will say, since he complimented me, I will tell you, and I said this to my wife when I got back, Phil had the best skin of anyone at the National. It's unbelievable. It's very impressive. I was actually discussing with Short Print a Day with Jake if he had makeup on or if he used Botox. Like it was noticeably just better, And we're talking like camera ready skin, Jeff. You know what I'm talking about. You're on TV. I don't know.
That's impressive, Phil. I can't believe that you managed to fit a skincare regime in with all your other things going on.
I've been told fingernails are pretty solid. Scott's are really bad, by the way. We had to edit those out the other day. Skin, it must have been some recent sun exposure. I've never been told that ever. So I'll have to.
Well, that's the word going around the National. But speaking of word going around the National, there was the first, I guess, or second, depending on what we count last year, but the spitballing cards gathering, and there was some pivoting going on because we heard that the Nationals cracking down on hotels allowing baseball card people, I believe that's what they referred to you as, baseball card people, being having any gatherings inside the hotels. So there was some pivoting. Phil, you want to tell us a little bit about how that all went down?
Yeah. So Mike Moynihan, some of you guys might know him as Baseball Collector. Some of you guys might know him as his time on Chasing Cardboard. He was also with Bench Clear Media for a while. So he's like really well known within the YouTube sports card collecting space, especially within the vintage community. And one of the first guys I actually saw while I was watching YouTube, like, oh, he seems like a cool dude. Turns out we have the same birthday. And he's been hosting a party at the National for the last 6 Nationals. He's had one, and it's always been on Thursday. It's always gone really well. There's always been a massive turnout. Pictures get posted on social media. He was trying to do his thing at Embassy Suites. He did it last time. It was in Chicago there, and he buys a bunch of pizza. So it was supposed to be like a quote unquote pizza party. And there's like a separate area. It's not a function hall. It's not a function room. It's just like I don't really know how to explain it. It's like the second floor. There's like a loft area where a bunch of people can kind of congregate. Obviously, it's meant for paying guests, right? But what are they going to do? There's like people all over the place. They can't supervise everything, right? Well, it turns out that they told him, you need to leave because we're contracted by NSCC to not allow any sort of events like trade nights. And then what I had heard, because I wasn't there, Mike responded to him and said, well, we're just a bunch of card people just hanging out and enjoying our time and having some drinks. Is that okay? They're like, no, because you're card people, so you need to go. So a lot of pressure being brought on these hotels from whatever contract they signed with the national committee or whatever to take this pretty seriously, even for the folks that aren't like, yeah, sure. Some of those guys that came, I bet most of the guys had backpacks. I also bet most of the guys didn't have their inventory laid down on the floor looking to wheel and deal and take cash. Very different than what you would get years prior to this in Chicago, where every hotel, like all 8 within walking distance, would have just the lobby just completely littered with people. And then any sort of hallway that would go from the lobby to the elevators blocked completely. People sitting down, chairs, people pulling in tables from places where they weren't supposed to get them from, like the function hall rooms or whatever, and then setting up all over the place. So 2 years ago in Chicago, they started to crack down on that by, I think, like Friday or Saturday. And then this time around, they're taking it even more seriously. So it actually made me and Chris move the location of our get-together, because even though we didn't really plan for it to be a trade night, I just didn't want us to get shut down for stupid reasons. So
yeah, and I understand especially from the point of view of the hotel, to have your lobby overrun with a trade night is really intrusive for paying guests. So I completely get that. But to conflate the trade nights with these gatherings, that seems a little strong. And especially if on the national side, the card show side, it was to deter any competition from their own sanctioned trade nights, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but those were all slammed and people had to wait for hours to get into those trade nights. So I don't feel like from the card show side that they really need to be policing other trade nights that infringe upon the quality of their sanctioned trade nights. So that was a little bit strange to hear from my point of view.
Yeah, the Thursday trade night I couldn't even get into. The eBay sponsored trade night, like they gave out bracelets or some sort of like wristband thing. I couldn't get in, and there was someone at the bottom of the escalator yelling that it was full and no one else was getting in, and even with the bracelet you had to wait. So I mean the demand was there. That was cool. But yeah, so Jake and Maddie H Cards and I went over to the Lowe's to try it, to just see what it was like. And the bar was small, Phil. I'm sure you've been in there before, but even wearing like a Braves jersey, and Jake is large and he was wearing a Yankee jersey, the hostess was not happy that we were even coming in. It was just a really weird reaction. She was like, I guess you can go sit by the bar, but you're going to have to wait for a drink. I'm like, yes, we understand how the concept of a bar, like we have been to this before. And we actually opened up a little Blaster Stadium Club that we found at the show. And perhaps most ironically, was a good box. We actually pulled, check this out. I'll do this really quick. Pulled a refractor of Devers.
Nice.
These were like 1 in, I think, 200 and some odd packs in blasters, and a terrible image, but a cool card. And then 2 packs later, we actually pulled the orange of the same thing. This was numbered out of 99. So we got excited. We made a little bit of noise, and the just derision from the woman at the hostess stand, like she was just disgusted that we were there. The bartender thought it was funny. He didn't care. And their French fries were really good, but there was very little room in there. I think Phil found that Pete's Tiki Bar, which was in a really cool area, surrounded by other restaurants, and it looked like a lot of parking. And there's a big outdoor space, so it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, it sounded like it was a great location change, and it sounded like you guys were able to meet a lot of people. I saw pictures. I didn't necessarily miss being at the show. I know we're going to get to go to the Burbank show, and it did look crowded. But where I did get a little bit of FOMO was seeing you guys get to hang out and meet the other people. So that looked like a really good time. Any highlights from that night?
I mean, a lot of people showed up, so that was nice. And this is the one downfall of it being like 72 degrees all week. It's a little chilly at night, especially in Chicago, the windy city they call it, right? So we're not over by the lakes, but it got a little chilly, and wish I could have drank more alcohol, because then I think the party would have been even more lively. So, but for personal reasons, I did not. And yeah, tons of people came, and many of which I hadn't met before, Matty H being one of them. And a number of people just said like, oh, thanks so much for the content. Really appreciate it. Watch every episode, watch it on my way to work. Just really nice to see the support that we got for people that showed up. So thanks for everybody that showed up. And we'll try to do something again next year, and hopefully Chris can make it again. Maybe even Jeff this time.
Yeah, we will begin as soon as the Burbank show is over at the end of the month. Jeff and I will start planning a babysitter for him. We'll start 11 months in advance to make sure that we can get him out there.
I'll bring the family to Chicago. We got to get to Chicago anyway. Maybe next year.
There you go. That'll work. But yeah, the turnout was really good. And yeah, I know Phil wasn't drinking, but obviously I was. And there was a pretty steady flow of cocktails being handed to me, which I didn't feel that windy chill you were mentioning. I didn't feel it. So that was a nice little byproduct of that. I did see we had one big deal go down at our event. One of our a friend, probably not a friend of the show, but a friend that we all know, signed and slabbed on Instagram, acquired a personal Grail card he's been hunting for years at our meetup. It was really fun to see. He picked up a Mookie Betts Hollywood SSP, the 2020 Series 2. It's like his first card as a Dodger. It's very, very cool. But a gentleman brought it, just to see. He knew I was going to be there, and he thought he'd see if he had any SSP buyers, and he did. So it was awesome. We met some people. We saw a guy get his Grail. I will say, Phil, you've met more people probably than I have at this point, but someone will say like, "Hi, my name is Carl," and I have no idea like who this is. He's like, "Hey, Chris, like I'm Carl." I'm like, I need like a YouTube handle or an Instagram handle or like some cards you have. Like, I don't know people's names, and I'm gonna have to be honest. It's Monday. I've forgotten pretty much all the names, but I do remember some of the Instagram handles and the YouTube handles that I met. That's society in 2025, Jeff.
Yeah, that's the baseball card hobby too, right?
All right. Yeah.
Well, great. It sounds like mostly positive things. Anything strike you at the show that you got to see, Chris, that you were excited to see, that you weren't expecting to see?
I actually saw a couple Topps Chrome SSPs, which I love to see those. I did start to network a little bit. I had a plan that if I saw someone who had a case of cards, almost all of one player, and one of those players, Jeff, had a Topps Chrome SSP, I was going to have a conversation with that person, see what else they had, see who else they know. And it's possible that despite what my wife says, I can be quite pleasant to talk to on occasion. And it is possible that this led to Jeff and I finding something big. We'll see. Nothing has been finished yet.
All right. Fingers crossed. Chris turned on the charm.
Yeah. But there was a lot more Freeman, than we've ever seen out here at the West Coast Card Show, which was awesome to see. A couple guys really had some great Freeman stuff. I still didn't buy anything really, though. So except for this Acuna All-Star jersey to celebrate his most recent stint on the IL.
Very nice. So Phil, anything that you saw that surprised you? Any pickups? I know you weren't on the floor very long, unfortunately, but what stuck out to you?
Yeah, so Scott actually brought up a good point when we were there, saying there are a lot of cards that are valued at $50,000 and above. If there's a downturn in the market, it's going to be painful for a lot of people. I wouldn't have used the word market value. I would say that there were a lot of cards priced at high, exorbitant numbers, and many of which we didn't always agree with. Some were actually pretty close to being spot on, and some it's subjective, and a lot of the times it was like, well, this is like the blow me away price. Like I'm coming to the National. I'm probably not going to sell it because it's my Grail. Unfortunately, the issue with these shows is a lot of the dealers, I would do the same if I was set up. They're withholding their best cards. So you had one guy that was talking to us, about Aaron Judge and how he's his favorite player, this, that. And he's got a lot of high-end stuff, like a green Bowman Chrome Auto he had out and a few other cards, probably some stupid short prints that Chris likes. And he was like, well, my Grail isn't even here. And he's like, it's a 2018 Gypsy Queen card. And we're like, what are you talking about, man? Like, even Chris, who's into like those obscure, fifth tier products, was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, man. I haven't seen this card before. And he's like, well, it actually hasn't sold since 2021. And he showed us a picture of it, and we're like, oh, it was like a cool, not RPA because it's from his second year, but on card auto with a piece of his sock from the All-Star Game / Home Run Derby. The Home Run Derby, of course, he won, and a matching photo that went with the the patch and everything, and pretty cool looking card. I do agree with what Chris was saying. I didn't see a lot of Pokemon, probably 2 to 3 times more than last year, but still a very small number. Like Chris said, probably under 10%. Last year and the year before, there was a lot more pop culture. I think this year, I could be wrong. I was only down on the show floor for about 5 hours, but probably about the same amount of pop culture versus like TCG / Pokemon. I heard and I saw the grading companies that were there, and PSA, again, I'll say it again, they need to have like 2 separate operations there somehow. Because if they didn't have a monopoly before, what do they have now? A monopoly? CGC is growing, but when you don't have that emphasis on Pokemon and TCG, non-sports, PSA is like killing everybody in sports, especially modern sports, especially what's getting submitted today, of course. So I know there's been a few folks that talked about like the repackers. Yeah, I saw a line for Hit Parade. A lot of lines, people looking to sell stuff. Neo's video, which came out today, he talked about like, can't we like come up with a way to streamline this? Like, why are people waiting in line for 2 hours? Can't there be a way, like a portal for people to like show you what you have in advance, and they can look at it and you can agree on comps, and then it's more just like transactional instead of everybody waiting in line and getting their own like analysis when they come up to the table. Chris actually helped me on a card I purchased. So I picked up Aaron Judge card. I was looking at ChatGPT to see what his injury update was and sort of like the outlook. What are the chances that he'll play? How bad is this injury? Chat AI isn't good at stuff like that yet, especially when there's like new information that's required. ChatGPT, the one I use a lot, isn't the best at factoring in those like pieces of new information, and especially with something that is sort of unknown anyways. But it did say that it thought that Aaron Judge could potentially begin to throw again in mid-August, and that him as a hitter wouldn't be impacted. Of course, I got lucky because what happened was we heard, was it Saturday or Sunday? News came out that he'll be back soon. And is that going to be as a DH?
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah.
Okay. As a DH first. So still has a chance to win the MVP, holding the lead right now over Cal Raleigh. But those betting odds are really close. They're almost like 50-50 at this point. Yeah. I think Cal Raleigh, when I was saying like, plus 1,300, that's not a good deal. Well, now he's like plus 150. So
one thing I just want to say, I was looking, obviously I'm there looking at Otani cards as well. There was a ton of base Otani, a lot of base Otani, a lot of top series 2, a lot of update base. I would say maybe 10 dealers had a Bowman Chrome base card in a PSA 10. A lot of guys had them in 9s, and those were right around $500, which is starting. I mean, at some point that's going to end up being like pretty much your most reasonable buy-in. And then only one dealer had PSA 10 refractors, numbered out of 499. So that number feels high, like Jeff, but man, you just don't see it. One guy he had 3 10s and a stack of 9s and 8s, and that's it. Like, I didn't see one anywhere else. And he sold one like about 5 minutes before I got to, or right after I left his table. I eventually came back. He had some cool stuff. Anyway, the point I was trying to get to is what was missing, at least in my opinion, was the stuff in between. Like that refractor, which was around right now, I don't know. He had him priced at 14, but he was taking offers. So maybe it's like a $10,000, $12,000 card now. There wasn't a lot of stuff like in that next tier up. Like the next auto we saw that was available was a blue pitching Min Gem 9 for about 30 grand. And then one guy had a gold, a PSA 10 gold auto priced at $275,000. But like It really feels like, and Phil, tell me if you would agree or disagree. It feels like the people that have nicer Otani stuff. Oh, there was one dynasty auto. People that seem to have like, the blue autos, the mid-range stuff, they're holding that stuff real tight. I did not see a lot of it on the floor. Did you see more?
Yeah, it used to be 6 months ago. It was like it's hard to get a good Otani for 5,000, but you could still get one. Maybe not the best card, maybe not the one that you really. A year ago, maybe like a Topps Chrome Auto raw that was like beat up, right?
Yeah.
18 months ago, Bowman Chrome Auto that was raw, maybe the pitching bows. 6 months ago, some sort of like non-autograph parallel from a decent set, numbered to 50 or less, right? Of Otani. Now, what can you really get for 5,000? It seems like the $5,000 cards are now priced, if not, they might not have sold for 10,000, but they're selling for 10. The $10,000 cards are now $15,000 to $20,000 cards. The $20,000 cards have gone up. We had a major market readjustment, I feel like, around April, right after the time that Scott bought his blue refractor auto. All the Bowman Chrome autos just went up, and they've slowly kept on creeping up over the last few months. I agree with you.
Was Scott like the last piece of the dam, kind of holding some potential buyers back who were like, if Scott's not buying, I'm not buying? And then he just finally gave in, and everyone else was just like, all right, if Scotty B Cards is in, I'm in. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or everybody had the same idea as Scott. They were holding off, and then finally couldn't hold off anymore. They all bought in, and that whole wave of that whole range of prices out. Phil, I wanted to ask you one question. You mentioned, and Chris mentioned this also, that there wasn't a lot of Pokemon and TCG at the show versus some other ones. We've seen that a lot at the Burbank show. There's been a ton of that. For the Nationals, is that because of all the legacy dealers there? I know it's hard to get tables there. So is that the biggest difference versus like a West Coast card show? There's probably a lot of newer people into the hobby that are able to get tables, and they're into the Pokemon space.
I think so. I think there's a lot of big time dealers in the Pokemon space that wouldn't even consider setting up at the National right now. So it kind of works at both ways. Like there's not a lot of dealers, but there's also not a lot of demand or expectations that there's going to be a lot of Pokemon right there. Pokemon there. And that could change over time. But I mean, yes, the Pokemon market is thriving and it's growing at a pace that's much faster than the sports card market growth, I would argue. Look at metrics like revenue, growth of collectors. I don't know. Just there's metrics. Just
even gem rate for PSA, it's almost twice.
Exactly. That's a good one. But sports cards aren't exactly falling off a cliff, right? So there would be room to have 2 national shows if they really wanted to have 2 major national shows, and to keep all the Dallas shows, the Burbank shows, and you'd be able to fill it with dealers, with customers of just sports cards. So I think it would take like 4 or 5 major TCG dealers that are like TCG first, not a guy that's a hybrid and started in sports and evolved to do also Pokemon. I think it would take some major Pokemon dealers, and then there would be marketing, and then there would be news spreads fast on social media, right? And then maybe more of those people would show up. But they have their own conventions. I don't even know the names of all of them, but Comic-Con isn't even really, that's mostly like...
That's movies and TV now, yeah.
Right. And comic books maybe a little bit, not really even. There's a little bit of cards, but that's not the main draw. So they've got their own conventions. I'm sure they have plenty of them.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Chris, I wanted to ask you about some of the other cards that you saw there. Maybe your favorite cards you want to tell us before we wrap up this conversation.
Yeah, actually, I grabbed some pictures. I wanted to run through my 5 favorite cards that I saw, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for Roastmaster Phil to just let's rip these cards apart. I'll tell you, I love these 5 cards, but I want to hear why Phil hates them. So this is I'm going to enjoy this as much as it's going to hurt. But he did actually talk me out of buying one of these. So that's a good place to start. There we go. All right. So here's one that I saw. This is Freddie Freeman's Topps Chrome Atomic Refractor Auto. Jeff and I are fortunate enough to own one of these. This is the only other copy of the card I have ever seen. This guy told me he bought a huge Freddie Freeman collection. He showed me some other stuff he didn't have on the floor. There was like a Heritage throwback in there. He had some really fun stuff.
Ooh.
But this was priced at $4,800. I was tempted. I think a BGS 9 recently sold for $4,800. So there was probably some room here. Phil, what do you think?
I kind of like that one. Now, that same guy did have another area with a bunch of graded stuff, right?
He
And
did,
similar sets and everything. So assume, and I think we kind of know, based off of your experience grading stuff like this, it's probably a PSA 6, but that's okay. And that's built into the price a little bit. Yeah, I kind of like that one. If I was to bash it, well, we already know like it's usually centering usually sucks with the set. This one doesn't look too bad. Autograph looks pretty solid. So
yeah, one thing you could count on Freddie Freeman back in the day is that his autos were good. That same dealer had the first Hope Diamond that I've seen in a couple of years, Jeff. Do you remember I drove like 2 hours?
I remember.
To his shop. That had one on eBay. It was raw. I called them up. They were like, "Oh, it's in great shape. You're gonna love it." I want to say it was like $2,000. And I was like, "All right, I'm gonna drive down there and take a look." And I get down there.
It was even like 1,500, Chris. 1,500.
You're right. It was $1,500. So I'm like, "All right, this is gonna be worth it." So I drive down there. I get down there like fence in the back. It looked like someone, guys, you couldn't have like been honest. Did you really think I wasn't gonna see it? But anyway, it was still cool to hold. But I couldn't spend $1,500 on it. Someday that might end up being a good price. But this a little bit high. A PSA 10 sold for $8,400 right after the World Series. This is a PSA 9. Phil, what do you think of the Hope Diamonds?
Love the Hope Diamond. Hate the price.
Yeah,
$8,500. You said right after the World Series. Freeman's got to be like down at least 10%, right?
Got it.
I know he's been playing well, better than a lot of people expected, given his like pain management sort of plan that was laid out earlier on in a vague way by the Dodgers. But yeah, I mean, the card's numbered to 60, so you want to pay less than half of the PSA 10 price for the 9. So it's just too far off. I'd want to pay probably closer to like 4,000.
Okay, Braves collectors. Oh, is this going to? There we go. This is a card I couldn't believe it when I saw this thing sitting in a dealer case, just a raw Max Fried, Allen and Ginter mini World Series champion card. I think the print run on these is around 20, based on I've talked to some Ginter about it, but I've never seen one in person. So this was cool. I could never bring myself to spend $300 on a Max Fried card, but if I ever did, it would be something like this. I didn't even ask you to talk me out of this one, Phil. I'd already decided not to buy it, but man, these are cool. If the Red Sox ever win the World Series again, you're
gonna go after pretty dumb. Can we move on to the next one?
Yes, indeed. All right. Teapots Home Base Cards HQ actually had this 23 Topps Chrome Bryce Harper SSP. This one says holding award, so it's probably graded quite a while ago. $1,000, honestly, not a bad price. Very cool card, but we have this one already, and it's hard to spend $1,000 on a card you already have, isn't it?
Yeah, this card's all right.
All right. Okay. All right. My favorite card that I saw is this. Whoa. Well, you have to deal with a little background noise because I don't know how.
Yeah, we get to see it in action. You want to explain what this is, Chris? $300. This looks like an altered card.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is Alex Gordon's 2006 Topps rookie card. I put rookie cards in quotes here. You're at all familiar with this. Okay, yeah, in 06, Topps put him on their initial checklist for Series 1, even though their agreement with the Players Association meant they could not make a card of a player that hadn't appeared in a game. I don't know exactly how it got all the way to be printed, but it did when they realized this was a potential problem and could blow up their whole deal. They had to get them out. So I think there's only about 220 of the full Alex Gordon cards graded by PSA. My understanding and asking this guy is PSA will not grade any of these cutout ones because there's really no way of knowing when it happened.
Right.
But reading about it, like the Topps employees just found they tried to get all the uncut sheets. They cut them and they just pulled like an industrial hole punch and just went right through all these cards. And I guess for whatever reason, then decided to put them in packs. But they are out there. They're very, very hard to find, and they're pretty cool in person.
It's a great story, a great hobby history story, even if the card's a little crazy to look at.
If he'd had a Hall of Fame style career, or obviously had a huge home run against the Mets in the World Series, but if he'd had a great career, man, those cards would be crazy sought after.
Yep. I think Phil almost bought that one after you left.
Oh, is that right?
I don't think so.
No.
But I like that one. It's kind of cool.
It's got a good story behind it.
It does. It does.
Well, Scott will have to give us his memories of the National when he's back next time. And unfortunately, Ty did not make it to the National, did he?
No, he was sick as hell. I wonder. I'm curious, like, how much weight he lost. I guess he had neurovirus plus like a little gastrointestinal problem, and I think if you've had those, it's just absolutely brutal. So
Like Mookie
feel better
Betts
time. Yeah.
prior to the season. Hopefully, he's back to his playing weight soon. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Please let us know in the comments if you enjoyed the National, if you went, some highlights that you may have had. If you had similar experiences to Phil and Chris, let us know in the comments, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.
Go.
Oh, one last thing.
Oh.
This is bonus footage towards the end. Hotels, feel free to kick people out if they're in your hallways, but at least like staff up your bars when you know it's gonna be a busy weekend. Because every time we've had a party, this would have been the fourth one at Lowe's. There's like one bartender, and it's like they're completely surprised that there's a card convention in town. So like you can be in disgust and tell us to leave and then not serve us or whatever and call the police if you want to, like you had threatened, I think, with Mike Moynihan. But at least like show some grace, is that right word, to like paying customers and guests of the actual hotel. I guess that's the issue. They can't tell who's guests or not. But if folks are paying at your overpriced restaurant, just be better.
Yeah.
It's crazy because you would think that these are the type of weeks and weekends these places look forward to when they get a ton of people wanting to throw money at them for not always the greatest quality stuff. So yeah, that's shocking, Phil.
The whole Rosemont area is weird because that courtyard area where we had the get together, the modified location, that was a Friday night. That should have been like peak demand, and you have like these 6 to 8 restaurants around that are completely dead, including the one that we were in, minus us. Like they could have closed down early. Nobody would have known. I don't know how that place stays in business or what their plan is, but yeah, I mean, good luck to Rosemont.
We should next year, Phil, if we do it at the same place, and I feel like we should like tell them we're going to bring a certain number of people and ask for like a little bit of a kickback or something. Like without us, how many people were in that place last on Friday night? Like 10, maybe,
right.
maybe 20.
Yep.
Yeah, throw you some deals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a spitball and cocktail, for example, maybe like a $5 spitball and cocktail. Although I don't like the way that sounds, so I have to call it something else.
It's kind of like the wedding party gets a special bracelet where they can drink for free.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I like where your head's at. Yeah.
All right. Well, they got a couple more years to get it right in Rosemont. Hopefully they do before the party moves on to Detroit. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. If you have any comments about your experiences at the National, please put them down in the comments. And we hope to see you all there again next year. Thanks for joining. See ya.